Welcome to Almost Pro. Today's episode is part of Podcasthon, a global movement where podcasters around the world dedicate one episode in highlighting a charity or cause they believe in. For us at Almost Pro, it's a chance to use our voice to shine a light on an organisation doing meaningful work in our communities. This year, we're proud to be supporting WattleNest and the impact they're creating for athletes and beyond. Today, we welcome Rachel Condos-Fields, the founder and CEO of WattleNest. Welcome, Rachel.
Thank you so much, ladies. What an absolute pleasure and honour to be here.
So grateful to have you here, Rachel. Rachel, can we start at the start of the WattleNest journey? What was the problem you saw when you thought, I need to fill this gap here?
Yeah, to answer that question, I'll go back to the very, very beginning, if that's okay. I think it's fair to say throughout my life, sport was my first leadership classroom. It taught me resilience, humility, discipline, and it also taught me teamwork in real time. I grew up in a regional coastal town in Victoria called Portland, where the ocean air was salty and sport was something we did. My life revolved around swimming. And from as young as I can remember, I was in the pool before sunrise, black line staring, and, just wasting seconds of my life, every day chasing that PB. The competitive swimming shaped me. It taught me discipline and resilience and all of those things I talked about earlier. It also taught me how to sit with discomfort, but it also gave me a real sense of social purpose, identity, community, and belonging. I saw firsthand the sacrifices my parents made. They drove 4 hours one way just for me to compete in Melbourne and then 4 hours back again. And as a 13-year-old, long story short, I was moved to Queensland. It was a significant shift, new state, new school, new friends, but sport remained my constant and it became my anchor, and it was my ability to integrate and find another sense of identity in a new place that was very unknown to me. Then if you fast forward to year 11, I think it's fair to say my life changed in ways I couldn't imagine. One of my best friends was killed in a very tragic accident. And when you lose someone so young, it really changes who you are, and it forces you to ask bigger questions earlier than most people do. And I found myself laying in bed asking myself, what matters? What am I here to do? And what legacy do I want to leave? And I'd always been quite community orientated. It was in my blood, granddaughter to immigrants. They migrated in the 50s from Egypt on Greek passports. But just seeing how sport helped them create a sense of social purpose and friendship and belonging was something that I valued very much. So at the age of 17, I had this sharpened focus to go and do something. I felt that life was very fragile and very urgent. So I went to Nepal for 4 months, and that trip became a defining chapter of my life. I was in the Golkana region just outside of Kathmandu, and I played an instrumental role in helping establish the World Youth International School that was focused on empowering underprivileged children through education. And I saw poverty up close, but I also saw joy, dignity, and extraordinary resilience. And one of the moments that really struck me at the time was just watching children kick a football on this really dusty patch of dirt. And I went out and joined in with them. And all of a sudden, there were no barriers. And it was a very early lesson for me that sport spoke every language. It didn't discriminate. And it gave everybody there a sense of connection. And I could see just by kicking this football with these young kids, it was building confidence, it was creating inclusion, and it was creating belonging in a way that I personally don't believe anything else can. So I was reminded very early on that sport can change lives. Now, fast forward to now, I was lucky enough to have a very successful career in corporate world spanning 18 years. But for some reason, sport just kept popping up in my life. And I became a bit of a mentor for some elite athletes that were struggling to transition to life after sport. And I started seeing some real hidden hardships and some barriers that the everyday Australian didn't really appreciate was going on behind the scenes. And I was absolutely mortified to find out an Olympian in my network had basically been living out of a car in order to fund and fuel her Olympic aspirations. And I just, couldn't let that go. So sport just kept calling. I ended up with a few advisory board roles and things in the professional world. I ended up as a chief commercial officer for an AFL club, and I started seeing the real power of sport to build stronger, healthier communities. But I also saw the disconnect between our elite athletes and felt that there was no real organisation in Australia that was focused on bridging the gap between talent and opportunity. And coming from regional Victoria, I knew that talent was everywhere, but opportunity wasn't. And I often thought about the swimmers in my town that didn't have parents that were prepared to drive them 4 hours one way just to compete. So that's how the WattleNest was born. I just thought these athletes need advocacy. We've got the Brisbane 2032 home Olympic and Paralympic Games on our doorstep. And I wanted to use sport as a reminder that it is a social economic driver. It does build stronger, more inclusive communities. And there is a lot of talent there where affordability does become a barrier for them to reach their dreams. So fast forward to now, we're an athlete community of over 160 athletes. We have some really highly credible organisations that are partnering with us, and it's enabled us to make $1 million of direct benefit to the athlete community in our 3 years of operation. We're only 3 years old. And I just, it's really rewarding, really powerful. It's certainly not paying the bills that I had paid when I was in corporate world, but it's definitely become a passion and something that I feel is fueled by purpose. And just you look at the Milano Winter Olympics and seeing 3 of our athletes compete there and make their Olympic debut was a real proud mum moment. I know that they had a whole team around them to help them get there, but knowing that our movement and our partnerships played a very small role is something quite powerful. I did warn you I can talk for hours, so.
And please do.
Yeah.
But it's a full circle moment, right? The why am I doing this? Or here they are. Here's the 3 athletes I can and many others, not just to be on an Olympic stage, but many, many others. So talk to us in a practical sense. How does WattleNest help that athlete?
Yes, so fundamentally, our aspiration is to provide them financial support to help bridge some of those gaps in traveling, competing, purchasing uniforms, even getting access to coaching, a high performance center, recovery, etc. I have a gymnast in my program who unfortunately didn't qualify for the Paris Olympics, but I know in that Olympic qualifying period, her mum remortgaged her house and spent $80,000 chasing qualification points, just for the glory of representing Australia and that passion of fulfilling her dream. And I don't think a lot of people see some of these stories and sacrifices. We're all there singing the anthem when we've got a podium finish, but there's so much more to sport. It's not just about medals. It's about mental health. It's about community, and it's about that long-term social impact. So the number one criteria aspiration is for us to provide financial support. And we've got athletes that have received $30,000. We've got some that have received $300, but regardless of the amount, it has taken some weight off the shoulders of our athletes, which is really important. The second thing we aspire to do is create an organic network of support for this athlete away from sport. So we host roundtables with our corporate partners and athlete communities every 12 weeks where they're designed to be intimate so our sporting community can start building and fostering relationships with business leaders. And there's so many transferable skills from an athlete's mindset that sometimes are lacking in the boardroom or in an executive team that businesses can learn from, and vice versa. In both instances, we're operating in high performance, high pressure situations where results are key. So there's a lot of synergies between that mindset. And something that was unintentional, but 17 of our athletes have ended up with some kind of flexible working arrangement just through these informal gatherings where you can connect. And that's really rewarding for me as well. We also invest in a lot of media opportunities. We had a TV series called For the Glory that featured 55 athletes, and I think it reached 2.2 million Australians over the course of that production. And it was really great to give athletes that aren't usually in the media spotlight the opportunity to experience a studio environment, the opportunity to share their story, raise their profile, celebrate their sport, And, I just think that that really helps with their own personal and professional development as well.
Absolutely. Rachel, just incredible work all around. You've already made such a huge impact in such a short time, and it's such a meaningful impact as well. Which is why it's so important to us as well at Almost Pro. We focus on the storytelling side of those athletes that aren't able to get or have the platform to share their experience and share their journey. And it's just such an honor to have you here today and be able to get the word out about WattleNest as much as we can and get people involved. With that said, what are the biggest challenges that WattleNet face right now?
It has been probably the toughest 3 years of my life from a career and growth opportunity. I've learnt more in 3 years than I did in the last 18 years. The athlete demand is here. Like we are getting on average about 12 athletes every couple of days reaching out for support, but the corporate support is just not keeping up with the athlete demand. It's really tough saying no to an athlete. And, my husband's always getting a bit cranky because I'm dipping into our personal funds to help an athlete where I really see potential if the need's there. But it's just bringing people along the journey. I think a lot of people underestimate what this investment does mean, not just for the individual, but for the community and the legacy that can be left behind. We're in an environment of rapid change, whether it's sport or business. And, I honestly think that community inclusion piece is stronger. The need for it is stronger than ever. And sport is a perfect way to bridge that gap. Governance also matters, integrity, accountability to protect both the athletes and the organisations. And I think we do a really, really good job of that. But at the end of the day, when you've got 160 athletes, my number one priority is to put funds in their bank account. And it's disabled us from building a team. So it can be pretty lonely. I've come from global organisations where you've got unlimited resources and unlimited budget at your fingertips. And then going into a environment where it's solely you, it can be a little bit lonely, and the challenges can be a little bit more real. And you don't have a budget to dip into, and you don't really have that ability to make as many mistakes because it's just you, and it's just a very limited pool of funds coming in to make impact. But at the same time, it's something I'm very, very proud of because I would challenge any other business to make the impact that we've had with a one-man team and the administration expenses that we've had. I just don't think anyone else has or would be able to do it, to be honest.
It is phenomenal, Rachel. It's phenomenal. Almost Pro has covered some of these issues in our recent discussions. We've talked about those transferable skills, that can go into employment spaces. So athletes can bring skills out of their sporting career and how to see how transferable they are. We've talked at depth about the challenges financially. And look, we've been quite specific about how they impact Australian athletes, although we absolutely have touched on the ways that it's impacting in other parts of the world. Australia in particular relies quite heavily on government funding in many sporting spaces. The reality being what you're doing is opening where the true opportunity lies. That is, government funding is channeling into elite spaces. But individual costs are often what break the talent, right? It stops them from standing in front of us so that you and I can know these people as household names. It is the reason Almost Pro exists, because there are so many athletes who are missing just that one pillar of support, whether it's community support or financial support. They're missing that one layer of strength to be able to take their talent to the next level. So what you're providing is just something that so many athletes need. I'm not surprised to hear that 12 are knocking on your door. I suspect the number would be much bigger as people start to find out you're there.
You're so right. The thing that I find absolutely heartbreaking is I know that too many talented athletes just fall through the cracks.
100%.
Because they lack connection, they certainly don't lack capability. And there's so many people out there that I know could be on the international stage getting podiums, and they don't even know the WattleNest exists.
Yeah.
So that is the real struggle and something that torments me daily. But
Yeah.
hopefully we can create some kind of sustainable support system and bring the nation along the journey so that those athletes aren't falling through the cracks and everyone's voice is heard and that talent is seen. with sport, we know that it's about consistency. It's not just about talent. And there's all of these athletes that are continuing to turn up, show up, train, but might not be able to just get to the national championships for that spotlight or that visibility, or even get to states, because that affordability barrier is very, very real.
I like the angles you're tackling it from, the Rachel. You're not just saying, here's this bucket of money, but what you've been able to create is that secondary benefit of, actually, we've got this link between an employment
Yeah.
network and what our athletes can offer in their transferable skills. And I, you mentioned that was somewhat incidental. It was a nice effect, but I bet you're going to see more and more of that, because what it takes to be an athlete at that high level is what we all want in our employees, right? We want them to show determination, to show initiative, to show time management, to show just that balance of priorities. Getting flexible work is tough for these athletes. Do you think there's other misunderstood spaces for athletes in Australia or in the landscape you're working within?
Yeah, I think the first year of the WattleNest was all about education. I got a lot of backlash when I started up saying it's their choice. And they're so lucky to get paid what they get paid to represent Australia. And I think there was this misconception where most Australians just assumed if you're wearing the green and gold, you are living comfortably from doing so, and how lucky you are to be doing a job that you absolutely love. And I think when they discover that it's actually costing most athletes and putting them in a situation where they struggle to earn $20,000 a year, I think that was a real eye opener. We've got a lot of people. You've got to remember the Olympic cycle is 4 years. So I'll use the gymnast as an example. She missed out on the last one, but she's still pushing because she wants to be an Olympian. So that's another 4 years of her life
Yeah.
that she's putting on hold. And, a couple of people have called me out for using the word sacrifice, because it is a choice, and I totally understand that. But with that comes a lot of discipline and a lot of lifestyle changes for them to be able to do that. And for me, it's about community. It's not about sponsorship. It's about partnerships. And when business invests in athletes, they're investing in leadership pipelines as well. So
Yeah.
there's so much more to it. And hopefully we can shift the dial, and hopefully we can make a difference, and hopefully we do leave a legacy.
Rachel, it's just incredible, all of the impact that you're making. My biggest question right now is, how can people get involved?
Great question. We will welcome anyone that shares our values and wants to be aligned with an athlete's journey or just be part of the WattleNest community. Have a look at our website, wattlenest.com.au. I'm not a very private person. My contact details are there. So reach out to us, drop us a line and get involved. We're actually about to launch a campaign called One in 2032. It's an official Team WattleNest campaign. And we're giving 2032 Australians the opportunity to join our official cheer squad. And
Wow.
membership number 1 is $1. Membership number 2032 is $2,032. And Carol Fox, who you both already know, is our VIP number 2032 member. She jumped in and grabbed that number up front.
I love that.
Our aspiration is to sell all of those numbers by the end of the year so that we can give 160 athletes a $10,000 kickstart.
And how easy is that to get involved? That's fantastic.
It needs to be inclusive as well. So we don't want to just invite people that have thousands and thousands of dollars to invest. And this One in 2032 campaign gives everyone the opportunity to be involved, from $1 to $2,032. So there's really no excuse.
It's brilliant. So well done. And people can do that via your website.
Yes, we'll be launching a Shopify account where you can buy your number. I will share you the link. And yes, they can absolutely get on board and take a number.
I love this. I think that is one of the simplest campaigns I think Laura and I have actually seen.
Yeah.
And you're right. It is about inclusivity. What I think, lots of businesses don't realize is when you're supporting an athlete, you become part of their athlete family, right? And so the buy-in is massive. You experience their ups, you experience their downs, but you're working alongside them. And you may not have that in your home life, in your family, but they become part of your business family. So it is a special opportunity for people to be involved. Rachel, your website again?
www.wattlenest.com.au.
Perfect. Perfect. So if we see this all subscribed right through to 2032 with our beautiful Carol Fox, where do we think we'll be in 5 years' time?
Well, hopefully we can replicate this campaign and it's that successful. We start having a grid for every state. That would be fantastic. Rather than having one for Australia, if we can have one for every state, it'd just be amazing the opportunities that we can create for others just by doing that.
I love that. I love that. Rachel, it has been an absolute pleasure to promote WattleNest on Almost Pro today, to have you join us, to hear your passion, to share your story and your experiences and how sport has influenced and shaped you. And most importantly, to help grow the WattleNest. We're so proud to have you here.
Thank you so much. And a huge congratulations for the awareness you've created and the wonderful things you're doing. The sporting industry needs it and you're doing an amazing thing.
Thank you so much,
Pleasure.
Rachel.
Thanks, Rachel. Pleasure to have you.
Thank you.